Hello everyone! In today's video we're going to try to make the cheapest handheld gaming console possible. But before we begin, we have to say thank you to PCBWay for sponsoring today's video. PCBWay launched their 7th edition of their design contest where you can win interesting prizes. The first prize being $1,500 in cash plus $200 in coupons and a palm-size robot dog. The second prize, $1,000 in cash plus $100 in coupons and a Raspberry Pi 5. The third prize being $500 in cash plus $50 coupon plus a smart camera. There's also different participation prizes, so feel free to join the competition and good luck. Recently, I went to my local flea market and I bought this bunch of phones for $10, which means literally $1 for each phone. Of course, not all of them are working. For example, this one and I think this one, they will not turn on. The rest of them, however, do seems to work, although I think this one gets stuck on the startup screen, so I guess it needs reinstall the software. And the rest of them seems to work just fine, even though they have some broken screen or missing parts, missing components. So for today's video, I want to focus on this Lenovo phone, which is a Lenovo A1000. So the specification of this phone are this one. So this phone has a quad-core CPU clocked at 1.3 GHz with 1 GB of RAM memory. So that should be a quite decent gaming console. Now, the phone basically was $1. The most expensive part of this project is, however, this keyboard that I found at a local store. So basically the keyboard will cost, the keyboard price is like $5. So basically, yeah, I bought a bunch of keyboards to have for different projects. So let's get started at first by designing a case for this, and after we will put the Bluetooth keyboard inside, and the power for the keyboard will come from the phone battery itself. Now for the design, I was thinking I will get inspiration from the design of the original Game Boy. So basically it will look something like this, with the D-pad and here 4 buttons. The speaker, I guess I'll move in this position, and a start and the select button, as well as some trigger buttons, which will be useful for some FPS games. So let's get started by designing the case at first. So, until the 3D print will be finished, let's open up the keyboard and make a schematic that we can use in future projects also. So, after a lot of testing, I figured out the buttons that I want to use by using the trial and error method. So I just took a wire and test different test points to see the outcome. So these are the keys that will be used. Then we have the arrow keys and some letters that will be used for A, B, C, X, Y buttons, as well as the trigger buttons. So if you want to make a mod using this kind of keyboard, these are the test points that you can see here that can be used. So now let's move on to the next step, to solder the button on the PCB and fix it here. One thing that I forgot to do, but I will do now, are some holes here for controlling the user interface. I decided not to use screws anymore because I will need to remove the SD card. The slot is not ideal positioned, so in order to transfer files I'll need to insert and remove the memory card many times. So for that I'll use this cover. The UI doesn't work in portrait mode, so for that I'm gonna have to install something to rotate the screen. So let's try the buttons. These are fine. This should be enter. Yes. So far so good. I'm not sure how to correctly check the arrow keys since it doesn't. Maybe yes. Yes, so up, down, up, right and left. Yes. So now I'll install the games and emulators and we'll test each of those. So with the emulator installed, let's now test, and let's start of course with the first generation, with the second generation of video game console, the Atari 2600. The first generation of gaming consoles are those Pong-like consoles where you have one paddle on the left side, one on the right side, and the ball in the middle. That's not really gaming console, but those were basically the first generation. So this is basically the second generation, the Atari games. I couldn't map these buttons to any of these, only the D-pad seems to work, so I guess for this I'll use the D-pad as to move and the touchscreen for the A and B buttons of the Atari. Atari was released in the year 1976, I think, and it featured some color graphics, but not very advanced. So there was no instruction on how to play the game. You had to figure it out yourself, and you had to use your imagination to figure out what's happening in the game. I don't know how I will get rid of this notification. Anyway, seems we don't have much battery left. Let's go to the third generation, to the famous NES. So this was the NES. From the same generation there is the Sega Master System. I think Sega Master System was a system competing with the NES from Nintendo. Although, if you ask me, the graphic seems a bit better than the NES, in my opinion. But both of these systems are basically the famous 8-bit video game consoles. Ouch. Okay, so let's move on to the fourth generation, where the Super Famicom emulator is. However, I didn't find any that was working on this, although I didn't have enough time to search it. So let's try what I found is a PC Engine. This is already the 16-bit gaming console. The gameplay is very smooth, sound also. So let's check another one. From the same generation I found a Neo Geo emulator, however I couldn't find any games for it, so we can't test it right now. If we move on to the fifth generation, we have the PlayStation emulator. Unfortunately, I don't have any ROM to test it, so I guess we'll let that for another video. What we are going to test is the N64, the Nintendo N64, which runs with without any issues. See if we can get out of the water. The sound, the movement, everything works perfectly. Okay. I also found the 3DO emulator. The 3DO tried to license their game to different manufacturers such as Panasonic and Philips, I think. The result were games that were really a gaming system that was very expensive, and I think nobody had it. However, this is the most famous game that was released by them, called Road Rash. It's a little bit laggy, but playable still. With Sega Saturn emulation, I have sorry, this is the Jaguar, the Atari Jaguar console, which it seems the ROM that I have has a problem, or the emulator has a problem, because it gives me an error saying that the game couldn't be loaded. So let's see the Sega Saturn. With this emulator I have some mixed result, because with all the games I get the startup screen, but after that I just have a black screen. I'm not sure why is that. Like this, I can see this screen, but after it will remain like this. I can hear some hussing sound, and that's it. I'm not sure if it's a ROM problem or the emulator problem. And if we move on to the 6th generation, the generation of PlayStation 2 and Sega Dreamcast, I have a PlayStation 2 emulator here. However, I think it's a fake emulator because it doesn't run any game. It says it cannot find any ROM, although I copied the ROM on the SD card. If I hit start the emulator, it says no PS2 games found. So, and it doesn't let me to manually choose the ROM. So I don't know about, if you know something about this emulator, let me know in the comment. What is working is the Dreamcast emulator. And with Crazy Taxi, it works surprisingly good.
time. Let's have some fun. All right, let's go make some crazy money. Smash. All right, pick up again. Johnny's up. Hey, it's time to make some crazy money. Are you ready? Here we go.
I remember I mapped the keys, however I exit the game, now I entered again and it seems my mapping is gone. The game runs very smooth though. Unbelievable that we can play Dreamcast game on a $6 thing. So let's now move on to the mobile gaming consoles, and the first generation of them being the Game Boy. And here we can do a comparison with the original Game Boy. You can see the screen difference. So yeah, basically this game looks like a wider Game Boy, but much more thinner. So yeah, no problem in running Game Boy games. I also found the Atari Lynx, but I don't have any games for it. So we'll test that in another video. Same goes for the Sega Game Gear. On the next generation I found the Neo Geo Pocket emulator, but again I don't have any ROMs, any games to try it. On the 5th generation, the Game Boy Advance, here we can try the GTA Advance. If we move to the next generation, the PlayStation Portable, let's see what can we emulate here. the frame rate is not ideal. Yeah, so I guess the frame rate is way too slow. I would say the PlayStation Portable, at least maybe this game is quite unplayable. I will try with smaller ROMs, with smaller game. The ROM does load, but I guess we're not going to play too much with this frame rate. So in the last part of the video, we'll test the PC game era with a game that it's quite unbelievable that it can be run on this thing, Half-Life. Seems we got an out of memory situation here. There we go.
Good morning and welcome to the Black Mesa Transit System. This automated train is
So
provided for
no
the security
problems
and
here,
convenience of the Black Mesa
except
Research
these
Facility
squares
personnel.
that I don't know how to remove all of them.
Is
So
8:47
I can
a.m.
aim with the touchscreen,
Temperature
move
is
with the D-pad,
38 degrees
and
with an estimated
attack
high
with the
of
trigger button.
105. The Black Mesa compound is maintained at a pleasant 68 degrees at all times.
So I guess here is where we end the video for now. I hope you had as much fun watching it as I had making this thing. And yeah, I guess we've come pretty far, since with $6 we can have a portable gaming console that can emulate up to Sega Dreamcast, PlayStation Portable, and Half-Life. It's quite amazing. Thanks for watching and see you next time.